Hey, how's it going? So I just wanted to make this quick video to kind of talk a little bit about what it means to pre-frame your funnels, essentially. So it's not enough to simply stick, let's say, an opt-in page in front of somebody. Hey, sign up for this, because the thing is, there are a bunch of different types of people that can approach this opt-in page. For example, there could be somebody, let's just say the topic is on BJJ, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? There are going to be some people that don't even know what that is. What's BJJ, right? And for these people, they're going to be very, very, very cold leads. They're not going to know what's going on. They're not going to be educated. They might not even know they have a problem, say it's fitness or bullying or whatever the case may be, right? This would be like the coldest meter, right? And how you would approach somebody that's very cold is very different from somebody that's very warm. Say a warmer lead would be someone along the lines of like, oh, I know who the senseis are, who the students are, what BJJ is, how it would really benefit me. I know that it would help me, all these different things and stuff. How you would approach these is very different. Like if they don't have a dojo, probably get in right out the door. I know for me it was very easy. Like I already knew what was going on. I was a super hot, warm lead. So as soon as I had the opportunity to get into a dojo, I got into a dojo. No hesitation there, basically. And how you would approach me in that circumstance would have been very differently if I wasn't educated at all. Which, by the way, I do remember when I was approached in this regard. I remember the person speaking to me at the time approached me as if I was a little bit colder, which is fine because it's not going to affect me, I think, because I was already interested. But just kind of like to illustrate the difference in meter, being approached from colder, I was being educated in the sense of like, well, like not every gym is certified. Not every gym is going to teach you the right things. Some gyms, are super, super aggressive. They won't care about the safety of, your safety. Basically they'll beat you up, all these different things, basically. So I was basically given this extra knowledge to educate me more, right? So I just thought it was interesting, so I just brought that up, basically. Whereas opposed to more warmer is pretty much just like, yeah, come at the door, you're good to go, right? Like you already know this stuff, let's go, basically. So I'm just kind of illustrating that point, the difference of how you would talk to the person if they're colder or how they're warmer. So kind of the stages of this process, the first one is you don't know anything, basically. You're not aware of a problem. So the thing is, like, for example, with why would you want BJJ, right? Why would you want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? It's a martial art, right? Why would you want to study a martial art like this, right? In order to understand that, you would want to understand that there's a problem you're trying to solve. But what's that problem? The problem could be fitness. It could be being bullied, right? It could be self-defense, right? These are all problems that can be addressed, right? And depending on how much they know about these problems is going to determine how you're going to approach them. Like, for example, you can come up with like some crazy statistic like, oh yeah, in city XYZ people are getting mugged all the time, yada yada. It's important to be able to defend yourself, like especially like women, right? Like we always see all these things like, okay, here's like this cool alarm thing, or here's pepper spray, all these different things, right? And in the case like BJJ, like it's great to utilize as a smaller person or someone with less muscle mass to go against a bigger opponent, right? So these are all gaps you can fill in knowledge. So it's like making people aware of this problem would be the very first step. Like, well, and again, there's multiple problems you can approach, multiple angles, but just saying like the self-defense standpoint, right? It's like making people aware, grabbing people's attention, like, hey, did you know this crazy statistic? Women keep getting kidnapped or something, or whatever is going on at the time, or whatever research is saying, right? And then that can get them interest, like learn what you need to know for what do you call it, to defend yourself, right? The second thing would be the product itself, right? So once people know what a problem is, the next thing you're going to want to do is make them aware of your product, right? And that's where you can actually bring up BJJ and how it's relevant and how it helps them and all that stuff, basically. So once you know the problem, you can then get into the product. But let me take let me take a step back from it, right? So the thing is, when you let them know what the problem is, so it's like, hey, here's the problem, basically. At this stage, you want to qualify them as a subscriber, right? So this is where like that first opt-in can come in initially, where they opt in. It's like, oh, hey, cool, yeah, let me try this out, right? This is usually the first stage of traffic, right? Like the coldest and coldest usually goes in like this, right? The second thing that I mentioned was the whole buyer thing, right? You want to get them to actually buy something. Now with this, you essentially want them to actually purchase something. It could be something very, very small, very, very expensive. You just want to, you're basically qualifying them to see if they're actually willing to put money down. So if you want to have like crazy deals and crazy sales or anything like that, or just something to get them in the door, this is the perfect time to do it. In terms of like internet marketing, like there's a bunch of different styles that can be done to illustrate like to swap someone over into actually buying. One of the biggest ones I keep seeing is like a free shipping type thing. So it's like the product is free, but it's free, but you have to pay for shipping, right? So if you had like a book that's like basically tutorials on BJJ, like this is a great opportunity to do this, right? So, but oh, right. Sorry. I just realized. I forgot. We're talking about pre-framing here. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. So pre-framing, right? How you would approach these different people, whether they are you're trying to make them aware of the problem, or you're trying to make them aware of a product, basically. Like each of these guys have different temperatures, right? This is all good information. This is what I started to talk about was basically getting them for the next phase basically of your funnel, because when you start off you're going to start getting at the funnel and you're going to keep moving into the next thing, right? So I kind of got a little bit off track and I started talking about that because I was talking about like, well, how do you get them to become subscribers, and then from there how do you move them into actually purchasing their first product and being buyers themselves. So a little bit sidetracked there, but it's still applicable in the grand scheme of things. But anyways, going back to the whole concept of coldest and warmest, right? So the coldest people aren't going to be aware about the problem at all, right? And then the next layer after that, they're going to be aware about the problem, but they won't necessarily be aware of the product, right? That's basically what I'm getting at, basically. And how you would approach them very differently. So the thing is, when people opt in, right, they can be coming from all kinds of different locations, basically. And depending on the location, you can frame the situation very differently. Like, for example, if you had... I'm trying to remember the Gracie families, because I know it breaks off and there's different Gracies and stuff like that. You know, like there's like a Henner and you know all these different ones and stuff like that. But say I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Oh, Carlos, Master Carlos, right? Say he was around, right? Say Master Carlos was around to give a standing innovation about a particular dojo, right? That pre-frame. Assuming that assuming that the people are aware of what jiu-jitsu is and stuff like that, like to see Master Carlos give a speech or something about a dojo, saying like, oh yeah, this is a very good dojo, that's gonna frame your dojo as a lot more credible than just, you know, I don't know, some random guy in the streets or something that has like a really beat up gi, you know, a really beat up gi that nobody knows. They're probably not gonna, you know, think too much of him if he was saying it. So this is an example of framing, right? And there's all kinds of different frames that you can do. Like you can do like a quiz, a survey. You can have like an article. Like you ever see those blogs where you go to a blog and it tells you something crazy or some kind of credibility thing, right? And then like if you scroll down, eventually it gets to your product, right? You can have news, you can have blogs, which is kind of more or less the same thing, right? You can have a video, so if you have a video recording of maybe, I don't know, something cool, like maybe like I remember this one video that I saw, there was some bodybuilder coming into the gym, right? Or into someone's dojo, just this really big guy coming into the dojo, and he was like angry and like, yeah, I can take you all on, I'm gonna beat you up, you know, like super muscles everywhere, you know, all veiny, all this stuff, like a million pack and stuff. And he's just a bodybuilder, and he just comes in, and like the sensei in whatever that dojo was, you know, it's just sitting there, and the other students were there, you know, legs crossed. I'm just trying to draw something really fast, basically. And, you know, just minding their own business and training stuff like that. This guy comes in and he's like, I challenge you, right? And the guy comes in and the sensei basically just beats the crap out of this big guy, just completely obliterates him. And this video went viral. Like everyone was like, "Oh my god, that was so great!" Basically, and it really showed the power behind Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu against these bigger people, which again goes back to what I originally was talking about. About like if a woman gets kidnapped or something like that, a woman usually has a smaller frame. I mean, there's some bigger women out there, of course, but typically, like if you're like, I know a lot of women in my life, they're much more petite built, basically. So if you get a big guy like this coming around, basically, like, I'm kidnapping you, you're coming with me. Why? Because I'm bigger. It's like, that's something you have to deal with. You have to deal with that body mass, right? So this video is an excellent, even better because there's a part 2 where I guess the guy came back, but then this time the sensei was like, "No, I'm not going to deal with you this time," and he stuck one of his female students on him, and she beat him up, right? So that's even more powerful. But the thing is, this pre-frame shows basically like, Jiu-Jitsu is a really strong martial art, great for defending yourself, right? Another pre-frame you can do is email. Another one you can do is a pre-sale page, right? And I mean, those are the main ones. I'm sure there's maybe some weird extra ones out there that I might not be aware of or aren't very popular or aren't super effective or something. But those are the main ones basically. And this is important it's important to pre-frame people going to your opt-in page, like, depending on what type of traffic they are, whether they're hot or cold. Because if they're colder, obviously you're going to approach them a certain way. If they're hotter, you're going to approach them a certain way, And you might even, let's say you do the quiz, like you might ask some questions regarding like, hey, do you have a problem with bullying, or do you care about martial arts, do you care about fitness, questions that give them like multiple choices, and depending on the multiple choice, it could take them to other series or other sequences basically, and then ultimately lead them to a different opt-in depending on how they're answering the questions. Essentially, like you can do that, you can get the pretty elaborate, So but this is basically just kind of a summary real quick, or kind of like a quick introduction of what it means to pre-frame and why it's important essentially. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any additional questions, feel free to let me know.